AM 1430 KRGI 105.5 FM. Good morning. 8:49. I'm Brian Gallagher. We have a guest in studio today from Central District Health Department. Chief Teresa Anderson has come by to visit with us. We're still talking about this COVID thing. It's actually year 3, but I guess it depends on when you look at when all of it really started. We started becoming more and more aware 2 years ago, about this time of the year, as a matter of fact. And we're still dealing, we're still learning, we're still adapting. But I know we're making progress, too.
Yes, good morning, Brian. And I think the trick is that we are making progress. We have learned so much since the first case of COVID. And we've been through a couple of surges, and we've been through some low viral times as well. So we're doing a good job of learning as we go. We didn't know as much as we know now. And based on that, we also believe that we will have more surges in the future, but we also know how to minimize the impact of those surges.
Has public cooperation been a big part of that?
You know, the fact that people are getting vaccinated, and I say this all the time, is our ticket out of this completely. When we have our vaccination rates high enough, we're going to be able to just have a few cases and not be so overwhelmed by the virus.
We've seen more and more ages being affected by the virus. Early on, the great concern was for the elderly population. Then it started to reach younger. Then it starts to get into children as it goes on. And even some of the new variants that have come out over the last year and a half especially have had an increasing effect. I know there are families that have suffered losses because of this, but I know there are other families that have maybe been affected or been witness to this, and they have seen a diminishing effect on a lot of individuals, but you still have to have your caution flag up.
We want to take caution, especially with this virus and the variety of variants that are being produced, because the research is showing now that there are some long-term impacts as far as brain function, heart function, liver function, not in everyone. And also, the research is showing that whether you have a severe case of COVID or a mild case, you may still have these lingering symptoms for months or even up to a year afterwards. That research is ongoing and will tell us more.
I heard some information given out over the weekend. There was an indirect prediction that this may eventually become along the lines of flu or common cold in relation to how it affects the population for the long term. I don't know if I'm ready to accept that. However, I guess I'm not, educated enough in the health field to really understand long-term effects of viruses or, as we've discovered, a pandemic. Could it be something that eventually just becomes ho-hum, but it had a major effect at first?
Well, I think it might become more manageable as we learn the ways to manage it. But I also think that, none of us wants to go out and purposely expose ourselves to influenza because that puts you in bed for a week. We know that we don't want anyone to go out and purposefully expose themselves to COVID. So we have some guidelines now. CDC has updated their guidance. So we're looking at whether the transmission is low, medium, severe. So we have some guidelines for that. So we've taken down our risk dial and we're going with what CDC says.
Because of that change, is that why they have said that masks are no longer so stringently recommended?
Right. We know in 70% of the states right now, the risk of COVID spread is at the very low level. So we know that today in our area, we're still at moderate, and that's only because they update it only on a weekly basis. But we believe by tomorrow we'll be in the low area, which means you can pretty much go about your business. But we want to treat this, if I can use this analogy, like when the weather changes. If it's going to sprinkle outside, you may take an umbrella or you may just go for it out and get a few sprinkles on you. And that's the same as when the COVID spread is low. You don't have to take a lot of precautions because your risk of getting seriously or contracting it is low. Just as the same as you go out in the sprinkles, you're not going to get that wet. So the risk is low. If we say that there's a superstorm coming and you need to go out, you're going to put on your rain hat, your raincoat, your boots, and take the umbrella and all, or you may just stay home, right? So that's the way we need to look at COVID. When the risk is low, go about your business, do your gatherings, have fun, celebrate being together, celebrate the lovely weather that is coming at some point here. But when the risk is high, that's when we're going to ask you to think about wearing a mask or staying home if there's a lot of COVID in the community, and protect yourself. So I think we're shifting from we're not telling you what to do. We're just giving you the tools individually to make your own decisions as far as what you think your risk is, but we will give you the guidance through the risk dial that's on the CDC site now, where you can check it by county and know what the risk is today for Hall County.
I think that's a great analogy. I think that rain gauge kind of gives us a sensation of what we need to be aware of, so that's good. Teresa Anderson is the Director of Central District Health Department. The other thing that we need to keep in mind is as the population continues to receive more and more vaccinations, that helps to prevent the reoccurrences, I guess. You don't want to be a spreader or carrier. But the other question that I have is, does it look like we're going to continue to need boosters down the road at this point?
Brian, the research is still out, but we are anticipating that boosters will be needed. This research that they're doing right now shows that after a couple of months, maybe 5 months, our immunity starts to wane, especially for those of us who are older, who didn't build as strong a response with the vaccine. We're probably going to need boosters. We don't know when that will be. We'll wait for the CDC to let us know, and then we will be able to provide those boosters again for everyone who needs one.
All right. If folks still have a question, what's the number they can get more information from?
Call us at Central District Health Department, 308-385-5175.
Teresa Anderson, Central District Health Department. Thanks for the update.
Thanks, Brian.
Good morning from AM 1430 KRGI, 105.5 FM. 0.5 FM.